Hey everyone, Matt Barrie here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel. It's time for the weekly preview. Hard to believe, by the way. Somehow, some way, we were just in week 0 on August 28th, and now we're in week 4 of the season. We're embarking on the back half of September, which is good and bad. Good because we get some good conference matchups, bad because the season's moving along quickly. Hard to believe, by the way. It was just August 28th, and now we're on week 4, and we've got to the point of the season where you wait all summer, all winter for football to get here. It needs to slow down just a bit, but I am looking forward to week 4 coming up. A couple things, some news and notes. Another coaching vacancy is open. Herm Edwards fired at Arizona State after 4 seasons and 3 games. This was his 5th year. So Herm Edwards out at Arizona State, joining Nebraska as the 2 open vacancies, at least for now. It never stops at 2. Hell, it doesn't even stop at 4. There will probably be significant hirings and firings throughout the season. I don't like the trend of in-season fires, but in the case of Nebraska, and certainly the case of Arizona State, if you come off a loss or your team just doesn't look inspired, or there's penalties, or it's sloppy, or no one's buying in, most athletic directors feel as though that's the time to make a move. And now we've seen that twice this season with Nebraska and Arizona State. Hopping into the games this week, there's some good ranked matchups. There's one of the ACC, Clemson and Wake Forest. This is only the first time since 1950 that they've both been ranked in the AP poll when they've played. Think about that. First time since 1950, both Clemson and Wake Forest are ranked. Clemson 5th, Wake Forest 21. And it's a good matchup in that Wake Forest, kind of a darling team a year ago. Sam Hartman, A.T. Perry, that whole class was a fun team because no one really expected it. Sam Hartman comes back. He missed all of camp with a blood clot issue. He's playing really good football against Big Bad Clemson, who comes in ranked 5th. And we still don't know about Clemson. We still don't know what they are. We know they've got a great defense. We know that. We know they've got Will Shipley, a really good running back. Joseph Ngata's played pretty well over the first couple of weeks. We just still don't know about the quarterback yet. DJ Uiagalelei has done enough to be good, but is he doing enough? Has he grown enough to make Clemson hang around that top 4 college football playoff conversation? At least for now, they're undefeated. They're ranked 5th. This game's on ABC. It'll be a fun watch. Clemson and Wake Forest. Can Sam Hartman, can he continue that magic? Can Dave Clawson, can they go in and can they get a win against Clemson and kind of let us understand who the Tigers really are? But again, ranked 5th, undefeated, Clemson and Wake Forest. Wake Forest 1-64, by the way, all time against top 10 opponents. Last time they won, 1946 against Tennessee. It's been a while. Watch that one, ABC, Clemson, and Wake Forest. Another ranked matchup I want to get into, Florida and Tennessee. Now, if you're a college football fan like me, and I'm assuming you are because you're watching the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, you kind of grew up with this game. Back in the day, Steve Spurrier, Danny Warfel, Shane Matthews, Jesse Palmer, Tim Tebow, Phil Fulmer, Peyton Manning, Clawson. This was the game, no matter what, was going to decide the SEC East. It came down to Florida and Tennessee. It came down to Rocky Top, Gainesville, the Swamp. It was the game you looked forward to every year because you knew the SEC East one was going to be decided on it. And during that Spurrier-Fulmer reign, there was a good chance one of those teams was going to be winning the SEC and the SEC championship. And so I love that they're back in this game ranked. Now, we need this game to be competitive again. For the good of the SEC, for the good of the SEC East, for the good of college football, we need it to be good again. It had been dominated one-sided by Florida. Florida won 16 of the last 17 of these things. To get a rivalry, you got to have it each year. You don't know what's going to happen. You can have a team with a 3-game winning streak in a rivalry game. You can have a team with a 2-game winning streak back and forth. Whatever the case might be, a true rivalry is when every year it could go at any other way. But right now it's been Florida winning 16 of the last 17 with Tennessee not being really competitive. But they're 3-0. They've won their first 3 games for the first time since 2016. There's a lot of confidence under Josh Heupel and Hendon Hooker in this offense. Tennessee, a high-flying offense. Florida comes in. They got the win last week against South Florida. It was sloppy, but it was good. Anthony Richardson hasn't really been in form since the week 1 win against Utah. So Florida and Tennessee, can the Gators and Volunteers please get back to the game we grew up loving? Because when it's at its peak, players like Travis Henry, Peerless Price, T. Martin, I mean, we could go on and on with some of the legends that have played in this game. Get it back to that level, and it's going to start getting the acclaim that it used to back in the mid-90s and early 2000s. So Florida, Tennessee, College Game Day is going to be there. They get the national billing. I hope it lives up to the hype, because when those two colors, that orange and that blue and everything gets out there, it's there's nothing like it. So Florida and Tennessee, I can't wait to watch that one come Saturday. Another ranked SEC game, Arkansas, Texas A&M, 10 versus 23. This is the 11th time these schools have met ranked in the AP poll. They're an upstart team in Arkansas, and there's a team in Texas A&M had a ton of expectations. You know their story by now. They lost to Appalachian State. They beat Miami last week. They're back in the rankings at 23rd, and they may have found a little something with Max Johnson. This will be a really good idea if the App State loss for Texas A&M was an aberration, or there are more holes on this team than we originally thought. Max did a great job distributing the ball. My colleague on Saturday, Jesse Palmer, talks about if he can be a facilitator of the Jimbo Fisher offense, it really makes this thing go. They have plenty of skill position players. So can Max Johnson settle in as A&M's quarterback and make them a legitimate threat in the SEC West? Conversely, you've got Arkansas. I touched on them to start the season, how they were one of those feel-good teams. They came off of last year, 9-win season. KJ Jefferson, the quarterback's coming back. There's a lot of momentum in Fayetteville, and this will be a good test for Sam Pittman. In fact, I had him on with me on SportsCenter Tuesday, today, the day that we're taping this, and he just talked about when they were down last week 17-0 at Missouri State, he didn't worry one bit because he knew what was going on the sidelines. He knew the leadership was there. They were kind of just taking it one possession at a time. And they got a little bit of momentum going into halftime. Then the second half, they started to stabilize a little bit, get down to the run game, and start being the more dominant team that they are. And so the fact that they got out of a look-ahead scenario against Missouri State, they come in, they won last year's game, snapping a 9-game losing streak to A&M. Sam Pittman feels good about the leadership on his team, about his quarterback. They're ranked 10th. This is a big spot for them because now, as the higher-ranked team at a neutral site in Arlington, by the way, the owner of the stadium you're playing in, Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, he's an Arkansas alum, Woo Pig, played football there. This is a good spotlight for them. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. Is the Arkansas feel-good story going to continue, or is A&M going to find their way back into the conversation? Joey Galloway and I argued about A&M on TV about whether or not they were done after losing to Appalachian State. You beat the 10th ranked team in the country and get some momentum with Max Johnson, look out. Texas A&M could be on a path to recovering their season after the App State loss, but I like this one. Arkansas, Texas A&M. Keep an eye on that Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Some non-ranked matchups that are entertaining to me. I'm going to point them out to you. Battle for the Iron Skillet. TCU, SMU, 2 first-time head coaches-ish in this game. Sonny Dykes moves across the DFW Metroplex. He was the head coach at SMU, now the head coach at TCU, taking over for Gary Patterson. And one of the better offensive minds in the country, Rhett Lashley, in his first year at SMU. Both of these teams come in with fun offenses. If you like offense, watch this game. Tanner Mordecai, former quarterback at Oklahoma, he's starting for Lashley at SMU. They put up a lot of points. They almost went on the road and beat Maryland in Maryland, which is a long trip for them to be making. But this is just a good DFW Texas rivalry. So the Sonny Dykes factor is interesting to me here. Going across the street to coach TCU. Watch TCU, SMU. Keep an eye on that one. If you love offense, great. If you love Texas, great. Or if you just want to see entertaining football, that's a good one. Here's one I never thought I'd be saying. I never thought I would be talking about these two schools on a football preview at this point of the season. Watch Duke and Kansas. Both of them undefeated. Mike Elko, new head coach at Duke. Lance Leipold, second year at Kansas. These two teams, along with, by the way, here's one for you. Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, basketball powers. First time they've all ever started the season undefeated. They've never all been 3-0 at one time. Fun little stat for you there. But there's just something good about Kansas. They've had 12 straight seasons of winning 3 or fewer games. They're already 3-0. Leipold's name comes up at Nebraska. He's got a good offense and a really good quarterback. We were talking to the West Virginia coaches today, calling the Virginia Tech West Virginia game Thursday night. Also a game to watch, by the way. We'll get to that in a minute. But they were talking about how Kansas came in with an offense that they didn't really see them running. Kind of a not a triple option, but an option type offense where they've got the skill set to do it. And so Leipold didn't run that at Buffalo. He didn't run that in prior years at Kansas. And here they are causing problems for a lot of teams. And they've got a good story going. And same with Duke. I mean, look, these guys aren't going to finish undefeated. They're not going to be a part of the college football playoff. But while it's a feel-good story and while they're both undefeated, let's celebrate Duke and Kansas. Basketball season's coming up. I don't want to hear anything about basketball. Let Duke and Kansas have the football spotlight. Let Kentucky and North Carolina have this football spotlight. Speaking of North Carolina coming out of the bye week, always watch them. They've got Notre Dame. That's kind of an off-the-radar game that I wanted to touch on. Now we're in the basketball school world. Watch North Carolina, Notre Dame. Because if Mac goes to 4-0, all they've done is win ugly. Let's see what they do coming out of the bye week. So little tangent there on the basketball schools. Texas at Texas Tech. Texas was a big theme of mine last week. What were they going to do after Alabama against a pesky UTSA school that's got a lot of players with a chip on their shoulder? How would they handle that moment? Well, they won 17-17 at the half. Give the ball to Bijan Robinson. All things are good. But Texas going to Lubbock, Joey McGuire, new head coach, very fiery, former high school football coach at Cedar Hill and DFW. This place for Texas Longhorns fans is absolute hell. Who could forget the Michael Crabtree year right around Halloween? For whatever reason, Texas making the trip to West Texas to Lubbock is always a problem. Now, there was some good news on Tuesday that perhaps Quinn Ewers' injury wasn't going to be as significant as people thought. I don't know what that means. Is he back in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever? But Hudson Card has been playing good enough to where Texas, talent-wise, has more talent. They should be able to go to Texas Tech and get that win. But it's just a place that it feels weird. And it always feels weird for Texas. So I'm not putting the Longhorns on upset alert because I really think things are different right now for Steve Sarkisian. But Texas at Texas Tech, if there was going to be one where I was like, that could be the one to look for if there was going to be an upset with an unranked versus ranked matchup. Here's one. They've got more national coverage, I think, than they ever have since they upset Michigan in 2007. Appalachian State against JMU, James Madison. James Madison making the leap to FBS this year. They dominated FCS, much like Appalachian State did before they moved up to FBS. And so I kind of like this game because I love it when programs make that leap, but I love it when programs make the leap and succeed. And we've seen that out of App State this year. They had College Game Day last week. You know the story by now, the Troy game, the Hail Mary. Should have beat North Carolina. They came up short in that one. But we always focus on Alabama and Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, all the big programs. I want to applaud JMU, the Dukes, coming up to FBS and playing Appalachian State, the most entertaining team in college football. If I'm you, I believe this is an ESPN Plus game. If I'm you, find a way to at least tune in by the fourth quarter, because with the Mountaineers record this year and how they've gone about it, you know this is going to be entertaining coming down to the end. And finally, I'll start with Thursday. I want to end with where we start week 4. I'll be on the road at Virginia Tech, taking on West Virginia. Lane Stadium, one of the great atmospheres in all of college football. Enter Sandman. We're going to show that entrance live on the broadcast. It's what makes the sport great. Now, this is an interesting matchup in that Virginia Tech, remember, they started the season 0-1 by losing to Old Dominion. Brent Pry's first game at Virginia. It couldn't have gone any worse for him to start his career. But they found a little bit of momentum winning the past couple of weeks. The win against Boston College was really good for them. It was an in-conference win for Pry. Last week, it wasn't going to matter. It was kind of a name-your-numbered game against Wofford to get to 2-1 on the season. Conversely, West Virginia, we talked to their coaching staff today, and they really broke it down for us. If you look at the first couple of games, they were beating Pitt by double digits in the backyard brawl. Pick six off one of the best players' face mask. You know what happened there. Pitt comes back and wins. Week 2, they're up 14-0 to Kansas. Looked like they were going to be able to do whatever they wanted to the Jayhawks, and then Kansas comes back and wins that game. So you're talking about a team that started 0-2 with double-digit leads late. West Virginia almost had a chance to come back and win that game. Just some mistakes and just losing their assignments on defense. And then JT Daniels, coach, look, he's been great this year. He's played really, really good football. So West Virginia now, 1-2 on the year. They beat Towson last week. It was a confidence-building game. Good for the offense, good for the defense. Feel good about yourself. But here you go again. National spotlight, Thursday night football, border war rivalry between Virginia Tech and West Virginia. You get spotlight all to yourself. There's an NFL game on, but you only college football game in town. How do you respond to this attention again? There's something about West Virginia. I think Virginia Tech's good, but the talent the Mountaineers have, watch this game on Thursday night, because if West Virginia puts it all together and doesn't make mistakes, we're talking about potentially a 3-0 team. It's very important. They said it today. Get back to even. Get back to 2-2, and then see what happens the rest of the way. So week 4 is here. Again, I don't know how, but I know that we love it. We know that we love you watching this content on ESPN's College Football YouTube channel. So keep that in mind. Again, cliff notes for the game: Clemson, Wake Forest, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas A&M, TCU, SMU, the basketball schools, Duke and Kansas, North Carolina, Notre Dame. Let's go out to West Texas with Texas Tech, Texas, JMU, Appalachian State, West Virginia, Virginia Tech. I've done the work for you. All you got to do, sit back, relax, and enjoy another week of college football.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.